Sam again. So if you're listening to this video, that means you've been accepted to law school. Congratulations, that's a big step and you should be very, very proud of yourself. Today, we're just gonna start talking about how to decide where you wanna go. So if you're deciding where you wanna go and not where you have to go, congratulations. That means you've gotten into more than one law school, which is great. Now that means you have to decide where to go of the schools you were accepted to. So you guys know a little bit about my personal situation. I got into 4 of the 5 law schools I applied to, which means I had a lot of considering to do. This is one decision I personally really struggled with. Now, there are certain things you can consider. This list is very subjective, and it's ordered in the list of things that I find most convincing. You need to make your own list about things that you find compelling when making your decision. So one thing you'll notice today is that prestige is not on my list. I do not care where is the most prestigious. If that were the case, I probably would have gone to Iowa or CU Boulder. I think I was actually ranked a little bit higher, so I would have gone to Iowa automatically if that was the most important thing to me. And if it is for you, great, it makes your decision easy because there's a ranked list of law schools out there. But if that's not the most important thing to you, then this video is going to be a lot more helpful. So like I said, this is my subjective list. So the things I looked at were the cost of the law school, how much does tuition cost, how much is the cost of living in that area, scholarships, do you have any offers, type deals. You should also look at the support system available, the program opportunities that you have at that specific school, and then a couple other things that I'll get to later. I'm going to focus on the top things that I just mentioned really quick. So cost. Debt is a very real thing in our society for students, and you should do your best to eliminate it as much as possible. Now that being said, if there is a cheap school out there that you know you could go to and graduate debt-free, but you absolutely hate it, do not go there. Cost is important, but it's not the only consideration you need to make when making this decision. So for me, cost was important, but it's not the end-all be-all. So I looked at tuition. So for the schools I got accepted to, South Dakota, Nebraska, CU Boulder, and Iowa. So tuition in Iowa and Colorado are very high for me. Nebraska is a bit more reasonable, and I'm an in-state resident in South Dakota, so it was very affordable for me. You also look at the cost of living. So in Vermilion, I'm able to have a 2-bedroom apartment and only pay electricity for my utilities, and it costs me about $525 a month. That is super different from the type of property values for rentals you can expect in Boulder, Colorado. So cost of living was huge. Then we start looking at scholarships. I didn't get any scholarship offers from Colorado or from Iowa, so those kind of push those further out of reach. They're not totally out of the woods yet, because there are other factors to consider, but they're kind of fallen down the list. They're 3 and 4 at the moment. I got a very good scholarship to come to South Dakota. Like I said, my stats were at or above what they were expecting. I'm from South Dakota, and I am a female, and they want to have that demographic difference. So that helps getting that scholarship. And then at Nebraska, I also got a decent scholarship. Wasn't as good as South Dakota, but it placed it in a reasonable range for me, where I could potentially go and not go super far into debt. So that was a good thing. And Nebraska's cost of living is fairly affordable. It's not quite what Vermilion is, but considering where it's at, it's very reasonable. Kind of moving on from there, you start looking at support systems. Like I said, my aunt lives in Boulder, or not in Boulder, but around Boulder. So that would be nice if I could see her every once in a while, maybe have a family dinner. Your first year of law school is very stressful. It brings up a lot of stuff. You think you're very smart, and you probably are. You made it into law school. But you're going to come to terms very quickly that you do not know everything. And it's going to be just incredibly clear right away that you're almost going to be over your head. But you'll get through it, and it's fine. Apply to law school. But support systems are very important. So for me in Vermilion, even though my family is all from South Dakota, they're on the other end of the state. So that's 6 hours away. But I do have a couple friends in this area that I'm able to reach out to for support if I need them. And in Nebraska, I had a couple friends there if I needed support in that situation as well. But Iowa, I didn't really have anyone there. And the nearest person to me would be 6 hours away. So it's not totally undoable, but it's really not the ideal situation. So Iowa's kind of dropping down the list to me. And like I said, this is super subjective. Maybe you want to be far away from your family and support system because they will like just make you feel crowded. And you do need to be entirely focused. So support system, important. Also start to look at the program opportunities. So this is really one that starts setting them apart. So we're just going to pick on Iowa today. Iowa is a great school, but it's expensive to live there, to go there. It's also far away from my personal support system. And even though they have really good programs, they're not the programs that I thought I specifically wanted. So Iowa is off the list for me at this point. Just out of all the factors, they really don't have the place that I want to be. Okay, let's move to CU Boulder. CU Boulder, I thought I really wanted to go into transactional law. I think that's still the path I'm probably going to take, but that has since changed since I've entered law school. But Boulder has great programs. They're a bit expensive, have a support system, which is great, but they also had the transactional law clinic that I really wanted to do. So Boulder's on my list. It's not at the top, but it's not off. Then we look at Nebraska. Nebraska is affordable tuition, affordable living area. I got a scholarship. I have a support system. They have the program opportunities that I'm wanting to. So Nebraska is looking really, really good. So at this point, Boulder is probably 3 and Nebraska is probably 1. South Dakota is number 2, and I'll explain why. So South Dakota is reasonable tuition, reasonable living, but I also have a full scholarship, which means I'm going to be able to graduate without debt, which is great. I have a support system, which is good, but they're not at what they would be in Nebraska, and I'm pretty far away from my family still. Program opportunities. South Dakota is a small school. They don't have very many clinics or experiential learning things. They're working on getting more, and I was actually in the middle of a dean switch. So this is the first year we've had Dean Fulton at the University of South Dakota, and he's been amazing, especially considering this COVID stuff. But he was also a very well-respected attorney in South Dakota, and him coming to the reins of the university was also an important factor for me to consider. So kind of all those things taken together, these are the objective facts, how everything lines up. Nebraska's 1, South Dakota's 2, Colorado's 3. Boom. Have my top 3. Okay. This is where we really, really start getting into subjective. The best thing I can tell you to do when deciding to go to law school is go to the admitted students day. It is so, 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 so important that you see where you will actually be living for the next 3 years. So I talked to the admission scouts at Boulder, and the tuition was just way too expensive, and it was so far away from most of my family, and they just kept having downfalls. So by the time admitted students day came around in late March, early April, I was able to come down to my 2, Nebraska and South Dakota. And you'll have noticed that during my objective reasoning of this, Nebraska was number 1 and South Dakota was 2, but in reality, I ended up going with South Dakota. And that is because of the admitted students day. Now, you'll probably say, why did you choose South Dakota? Admitted students day is just there to brainwash you because it's just a recruitment scam. And you're right, it is. But don't look for the traditional things when you go. So when I went to my admitted students days, I looked at how I would interact with my potential classmates and how the students already there interacted with faculty, staff, how they interact with each other. And I didn't ever really take what the recruiter said as 100% truth. Always take it with a grain of salt. So just keep that in mind. So one thing that really stuck out to me is that I was looking for my personal values. Now the things I value most above everything else is humility, kindness, and service of others. Those are things I really, really look for when I go to a new place. So when I went to South Dakota, I went to South Dakota first for their admitted students day. Right away, their slogan, is excellent service leadership. So right away, one of my values is in their motto. So super important thing to notice. I also started interacting with some of the people there. Now, some of them were very similar to me in the way I thought, and some of them were very, very different. So I knew I would be challenged if I came here. Not challenged enough to like pull my hair out because of the difference of people around me, but enough to be like, this is something I should consider. And that is something I really wanted, is to be challenged, because without challenge, we cannot grow. So, thing to consider. Interacted with the professors. Professors were great. The admission staff was, of course, great. They're supposed to be great. But we also had the opportunity to meet and interact with actual live students during lunch. And these people didn't come in the USD polos and everything else. No, like the first person I met had a sweatshirt, a top knot, and leggings. Like, she was not trying to impress me at all. She was there for the free food, which, fair. And when she was able to ask, we asked questions. What do you think about this? Things like that. And she was honest. She did not hold back at all. And that really impressed me, because honesty is the best policy. She didn't sugarcoat. She just, bam, told me what the situation is. She goes, yeah, law school sucks. That was the first, like, I asked her how she was liking law school. Law school sucks. I said, oh, maybe I shouldn't come here. She's like, don't get me wrong. I love the University of South Dakota. We have a really great environment. The law school is really hard, and sometimes it sucks. And then the two other people she was sitting with said, yeah, it does. But the great thing is, like, here we kind of have each other's backs a little bit because it's not as competitive, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes you just need to go down to the bar and get a beer in the middle of the day. And that just blunt honesty stuck with me. So it was something that I really enjoyed. So that was kind of my admitted students day. I interacted well with people that were around me. The people that were already students were being honest with me. They weren't saying like, oh yeah, this school is great. Of course, there's going to be some of that at the admitted students day, but it wasn't fake, which is something you always want to look for. So that was my experience at the University of South Dakota. It was great. Then I went to Nebraska the week later. So it was really nice that mine were close together because it let me compare them in the best possible way. So at Nebraska, we interacted with each other. That was all fine and well and good. We got more time with the professors, which was really nice. They were really super great, very kind people. Admission staff, of course, were great. I really wouldn't put too much stock in how the admission staff acts, because it's going to be basically the same at every single school you go to. But this was the one situation that really stuck out in my mind about my admitted students day at Nebraska, because professors were great, most people were great, but it was getting towards the end of the day. This has been a full day thing, so everyone's kind of tired, and we were walking from one session to another. And during that walk, the woman at the front of the line tripped and spilled and everything in her purse went everywhere. And the way I was raised is someone drops something, you just stop and help them pick it up, type deal. And same for our meals. Or just in the way we interact with each other, really. But in that interaction, I was at the back of the line, she was at the front when she tripped, and just everyone walked past her, every single person. By the time I got there, she was red in the face and just kind of trying to get all her stuff. Some people weren't even walking around it, they were just stepping over it. And that just image of her sticks in my mind, and no one helped her. Not the staff that were supposed to be there, not the other potential classmates that I would have. And just that fact that no one would help you when you fell down really stuck in my mind as something that I didn't want to be a part of. And I thought, well, I'll keep an open mind. It was probably just this one thing. She was kind of over the side, maybe they didn't see her, type deal. But it kept kind of nagging at me. And then we had dinner together, and I stood up, and what is customary in my family, at least, and for the majority of people that I've known in my entire life, was when you're done and you have disposable plates, you stand up and you say, does anyone have trash I can take? Now, maybe that sounds super foreign to you, but for me, it's normal. So I stood up and, trying to be polite and meet people, I said, does anyone have trash I can take? And the 4 people at my table all looked at me like I was from Mars. They're like, why would you want our trash? And they were just like, yeah, I guess. So I was doing my thing, like, oh, are you done with that? Let me take it. The Midwest nice that you hear of is actually a real thing. And I just went through the plates away, came back and kind of sat and chit-chatted. But that fact that they looked at me very strangely for something that I thought was quite routine, indicated to me that this is not really what my values aligned with, especially when taken with the fact that no one helped the woman I mentioned earlier. But despite that fact, like I said, Nebraska ranks objectively above South Dakota, but South Dakota's admitted students, they put them neck and neck for me. I would be more comfortable in South Dakota. I just felt like I belonged there. That's what my gut told me to do. I saw my values reflected back to me. Compared to Nebraska, where they have really, really great programs, but I wasn't quite as comfortable there because of what I'd seen at Admitted Students Day. So then we start the back and forth, what am I going to do? And that's when a couple things to keep in mind. So one, go with your gut. I've mentioned a lot of pretty black and white factors here. What is the cost? Do you have scholarships? Do you have support programs? What programs are offered? And then, do you see your morals reflected back to you? And those kind of weigh differently in some people's minds. But your gut is a great indicator. I'm personally a person who loves to look at black and white facts and then do what the pro-con list says. But my gut is something I check in that pro-con list because your gut is telling you something for a reason. I think the prime example of this in my life is I had a very easy time choosing where I went to undergrad. I looked at a lot of schools, but as soon as I stepped onto the campus of my undergraduate school, Shadrack State College, boom, in my gut, I knew it. I knew I belonged at that school. The struggle was I didn't have that same strong reaction when I toured South Dakota and Nebraska. They were both there, but it wasn't super strong. So it really took a lot of reflection to say, what is my gut telling me to do? My gut was telling me to lean towards South Dakota because law school is hard enough without being surrounded by people who won't help you. But nevertheless, I continued to fight with myself about it. If I would have just done what my gut said, I would have been done with this a lot earlier. So part of what made my decision is I remember this like it was yesterday. I was sitting at the desk where I was working, and I was talking to one of my friends. And I said, gosh, I just don't know what to choose. Should I go to South Dakota or should I go to Nebraska? And she's, well, just tell me about these schools. Tell me about them. And what happened is what I call the candy bar theory. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this phenomenon, but you're in the grocery store and you're probably little and you pick out 2 candy bars and you can't decide which one you want. You're like, oh, this Hershey bar sounds really good, and oh, this Snickers bar sounds really good. Mom, which one should I get? And she'll probably say, you should get the Hershey's bar, or you should get the Snickers bar. Depending on what you feel when she says that, it tells you the answer. So you might think, oh gosh, these both sound so good. And then she says, well, you should pick the Hershey's bar. And if you feel disappointed, it makes your decision clear to you. Because, oh, even though Hershey bar sounded good in my mind, I was disappointed when she told me to pick it. So that means I should have the Snickers bar. So that's kind of what happened in this situation. So that's what I would recommend to you, is have a friend sit down, have a parent sit down, just someone you trust who's not going to try to steer you one way or the other. So I sat down with my friend and I started talking about everything I loved about South Dakota and everything that I was worried South Dakota would be. Finished. And then I started going through everything I loved about Nebraska and everything that I was worried about Nebraska for. And about halfway through what I was talking about, what I was excited about in Nebraska, I found myself starting to think about South Dakota. And the fact that I was thinking about another school when I was supposed to be saying what I was most excited about Nebraska was very telling to me, because I should be 100% in my decision. And the fact that I wasn't, and I was thinking about a different school, made the decision clear to me. The candy bar phenomenon had just happened in front of me, and that was the best way to do it. So I ended up choosing South Dakota, and I'm really glad I did, because I fit here better. That being said, when you make your decision, do not go back. Commit to it 100%. Kind of what I did to make myself commit to the idea of, I texted all my friends. And I said, hey, I decided where I'm going to law school. I want to go out. I want to celebrate. Because this is a big deal. You deserve to celebrate a little bit. And they're like, oh, great. Okay, we'll meet at the bar. So we all got together. We all got a beer. And I made my announcement. I'm going to South Dakota. And then cheers, drink. And it was just a way for me to cement it and still celebrate the accomplishment of being able to go to law school. So that's my advice to you guys when deciding where to go. So I'm just going to list them again really quick so you can go back through and then hopefully apply these to the school that you've gotten into. So 1, look at the cost. What's the tuition? What's the cost of living? Do you have any scholarships? Look at the support systems you have available. Are they going to be there throughout? Are they going to be there for only 1 year or only 2 years? Just kind of things like that. Also look at the program opportunities you have at that school. Go, 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 go to the Admitted Students Day. It is so important. 110%. Listen to what your gut tells you about that day. What do you remember? What sticks clearly in your mind? Admitted Students Day is the way to decide where to go to law school, in my own personal opinion. If I could only look at one thing, I would look at Admitted Students Day. And the candy bar theory. Don't discount what you want. If someone says you should go to school X and you really want to go to school Y, and you just feel heartbroken that someone told you to do what you don't want to do, that's a great indicator of where you should go. So I hope that helps. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Congratulations on getting into law school. You're going to do just fine. Take a deep breath, weigh your factors, and trust your gut. You'll be fine. Congratulations, and see you guys next time.